Hello and welcome to the Business Brunch. I'm Melinda Ward. I've got my co-pilot Alfie, who might stick his nose up now and again because
And it's
he's
poor.
like that. Um, and we are also joined by Sarah Farmer and Vanessa Ashworth. So our dream team is in
Ooh.
full effect. So what we are doing here today is we are offering you half an hour of targeted business learning and opportunities to ask questions. So let us know in the chat that you're there, and let us know where you're from, and if you have any questions. As during the course of the show, we will bring in the questions, and yep, we'll do our best to answer them. So last week we had a particularly feisty show, which was great. Lots of interaction around International Women's Day, and what's it trying to achieve, and where there are still, let's call them, gaps in the market for equitable practices, and not just doing things like that are more token gestures, which are well intentioned but not really driving change. So that led us to think, how can we drive positive change? Sorry. How can we drive positive change, not just one day a year, but every day? And how can we drive positive change regardless of the size of organization that we're working in? So we've each got some ideas on that. And first, I'd like to let everybody do their introductions. So let's go to Vanessa first.
Okay, hello. Yeah, last week was brilliant, wasn't it? So many people getting involved, and yeah, hopefully this week we can give you some kind of handy tips on how we can actually create change, every one of us. But I'm Vanessa. I'm a marketer, a B2B marketer, and I'm available for my next role, either as permanent or interim. So if you need a marketing leader who will drive change, get in contact. Who are you, Sarah?
I'm sorry, I'm just so impressed with you. I am, who am I? I'm Sarah Farmer. I'm an executive coach and I work with senior leaders and leadership teams across the globe, helping them develop the mindset very much into imposter syndrome and the skills that allow them to be phenomenal leaders. And I've just written Leader Unleashed, which is now beautifully placed behind me. It's going to be available from the 28th of March. So I'll be letting everybody know about that. And what do you do, Melinda?
Well, as I said, my name is Melinda Ward, and in addition to serving the feline overlords in my house, I am the director for consulting solutions and managed services at Helm 360, and I specialize in business transformation, business change, consultant management, all kinds of fun stuff like that. So there were some points that were raised last week around, well, how do we actually get something changed? And what we might see something that it's like, okay, this is all right, but maybe it could be done better. And
Before we
then,
go into that, shall we say hello to people?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Sorry, I'm just a little bit overexcited, I think.
No, too
So
excited.
who
Yeah.
do we have with us? And just so you know, you may not see all of the chat in your particular stream. We stream live to about 12 or 13 channels, and you will only see the live chat for your own channel, but we see everybody.
We do. So Andy is back with us and he says special hello to Alfie there. Danny is with us, and interesting, Danny is going to be on the show with us next week talking about culture. So we'll talk more about that maybe at the end. So we'll look forward to that and look forward to actually getting you up on stage with us, Danny. And Sue is here and she is dialing in from London. I hope the weather is better there than it is here, because
It's not, trust me.
Yeah. And then Andy David is here and he's in Turek still, but longing for the beautiful Welsh countryside. That does sound nice. That does sound nice. Oh, and Danny says, yay. Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. Oh, who else is here? And Andy says, yay, Danny, looking forward to that one. There we go. So if you're new to the show, you're new to watching us, then do say hello. We've built quite a nice little community here, and we know there are lots of people behind the scenes who are lurking, who haven't said hello yet. But do say hello and do join us. We're a friendly bunch.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that we were talking about amongst ourselves as well is that a lot of times people see things and think, oh, that could be done a bit better. But not always feeling comfortable to raise it, or you're thinking, well, we tried, that didn't go well, we might as well just give up. And the challenge is that if you just give up, then nothing will ever change. And you'll be, as we've said before, net moving backwards. So it could be that just the packaging, the approach, any kind of innovation is going to have risk associated with it, right? We've mentioned this on other shows with different topics, that innovation requires a degree of failure in order to find success. So, how do we learn from that? Okay, so if you're part of a company or within your group who started to launch what felt like it should be uh, a positive policy towards maybe family leave or some sort of accommodations for people, and it kind of gets shot down, does it mean the entire proposal was fit for the bin and nothing else? No. It could be that there were three key areas which had a gap. And that could be around like how people were thinking about change and feeling about it. It could, of course, be that the plan for making it an effective implementation wasn't completely thought through. So maybe there are some things that need tweaking. Maybe it can be revised. And the third thing is, how is that message communicated so that it stands out for the right reasons? Are people clear on why we're changing? Or are they going to sit there and think, oh, here we go again? They're just trying to, tick the box for a specific day of the year so they can make a post on LinkedIn and then forget about it. So, what we were thinking about in that regard, when it comes to audiences and how is the audience thinking about things, this is where Sarah is really got a bit of insight. So, what my first question is to Sarah is like, Sarah, how when you're looking at having some potentially significant, ultimately positive change introduced, but you feel there's a risk that it could be taken in the wrong way. How do we manage that, or how do you even start to approach that messaging from the beginning?
Gosh, and it's such a huge question, isn't it?
Mm.
So to keep it brief, there's two things going on. One is how we feel about it, the instigator of change. So we need to manage our biased thinking and our beliefs about that change and make sure we've made the decisions for the right reasons. But the other part of it is how we communicate that change to people. Because I think I've probably mentioned this before on the show, is that when we're creating something different, we've thought about it and we've gone through it. Oh, that won't work. That might work. This, and we've spent hours, maybe days, maybe weeks thinking it through. And then we come with this wonderful change that we've spent hours and weeks thinking about, and we've gone through loads of different variations of the theme and come out with this perfect thing. And we land it in front of people, and they go, "No, thank you." Not because it's no good, but because we haven't given them time to, well, maybe we didn't know it was coming. We don't know why it's coming. We don't know how it's going to impact us. So this whole psychological safety thing comes into play, and we're put into a threat state. And as soon as we're put into a threat state, because change is coming, whether we like it or not, we know difference is coming, our innate brain result is threat, fear, run a mile, do something, shut down. And it causes us a problem, because then we look like we don't want the change. The person who's instigating it feels annoyed. It sets off their threat response. I mean, it's like a perfect storm.
It is. It's a minefield, isn't it? It's like we've said before. It's presenting the full feature film and launching the show without showing people the
The trailer.
trailer. That's
Yeah.
it. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because you're often brought in as an expert in your thing to solve the problem that you know you can solve. and you'll do all the work, as Sarah says, and you've got the answer because you know the business strategy, you know where you're going, you've seen it before, you've done it before, you've learned from past mistakes, and you present your thing, and like Sarah says, everyone goes into, whoa, what's all this about?
Mhm.
But it's really difficult because the leaders have brought you in to create that change. You've got to deliver the change, and they want you to do it, but you've got to take time to step back and bring everybody with you.
Mhm.
And what you've got to do is show them the problem,
Yeah.
show them where you want to go, and help them on that journey so that they see that your answer is actually common sense. It
Mhm.
might be a bit uncomfortable,
That's
but if
a
they
really, really
understand,
important point. That
yeah.
joining.
Yeah, that's what Danny. Look at what Danny's saying is very cohesive with your point.
So Danny says the most important lesson that he learned at school. Good that you learned it that early. It took me a little bit longer. Show your workings. You have to bring people on the journey with you and not just give the answer and expect them to buy in. Very pertinent.
Can I just jump in there because Vanessa, you're talking about something so important here, and I was talking to a consultant about this. Going, I've been brought in to do this change, and then I get nothing but trouble, even from the people that brought me in to do the change. Now, what happens is they bring you in wanting you to do the change. Then we don't keep them necessarily up to date with everything we're doing and keep reminding them why. Because even though they've asked us to do it, doesn't mean they remember the why all the time.
Yeah.
So when we produce our perfect piece of work, even the people that have brought us in to do the work also go into a threat state. And so you've got this, top down, bottom out, and you're stuck in the middle going, but you wanted me to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to go mute because the dog's barking. Sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, thinking about how the audience thinks is actually part of making an effective implementation plan as well. And when I say an implementation plan, I mean, yes, if it's a big change, this should be like a documented thing. But even on a much smaller scale, kind of a suggestion or a proposal that you might be making, including that and including, the summary of here's the current situation, these are the issues, and reminding people of that is important to make that implementation plan, to have that summary, because then you have a chance to address concerns, to discover them firstly, and then address them.
Yeah.
And that's where the question, which sounds good, but isn't always, do you have any questions? After I've just done a presentation, a lot of people will sit there like a bit deer in the headlights, like, nope, no questions here. Nope, can we go now? But I think sometimes there are better questions that we can ask to suss out where people are thinking, what potential roadblocks there might be, so that then we can figure out how to pitch the solution, and as well as how to address legit concerns that are raised. So I tend to ask, do you have any concerns? What else do you have to add on this? These sort of leading questions, because a lot of times if someone is in a meeting and someone says, do you have any questions? Even if someone does, they don't want to raise it there and then because they don't want to be seen as the one who didn't get it, or the one who maybe is potentially less clever. It depends on the cultural situation too, because in different countries, asking questions is seen as like really not the done thing. So yeah, let's go in. I think that we've got some chat items in here
We
as
have
well. And then
so Sue says it's communication which is key in everything. It's the lack of communication which people dislike and people rebel against, not the change itself. That's so true. But it's also, I mean, I'm a communications expert, professional. It's what I do. And it's so difficult though, because if you try and answer all the questions, people too long don't read. Not everyone reads emails, but then they'll argue with you if you didn't tell me that. Well, it was in the newsletter. It's so difficult. It's so difficult bringing people around, and especially with really small changes, because you think, well, how much input do we need to get to do this? And you're expected to deliver at speed, yet it takes forever to bring everyone with you. And there's this, Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. What does Andy say? Andy says, this feels like joining the dots to me. He's had to do this all the time to justify engineering decisions, but it's still
Absolutely.
commonly forgotten in personal exchanges. So true. And Sue says, agreeing with you there, Melinda, what questions do you have? And Danny says, what did I not consider? That's quite a nice
That's
one,
another
isn't it?
good
Because
one. Yeah.
it's not asking people, do you have a weakness? It's
Mhm.
almost show me my weakness, which might
Yeah.
open up the floor. Good question. I like that.
Can I add something to this which really helps? The questions are great, and yet they will still fall on deaf ears if
Mm.
you haven't done this other bit, which is create a safe space where people can actually answer them. Doesn't matter what the question is. And the best way to do that is to just douse people with empathy. We forget empathy all the time. And the reason we forget empathy is we go into these situations with our own heart rate going up, going, they're going to hate this, they're going to say no, they're going to think I'm stupid, all of that going on, or worse, we
They're
don't
going to love it.
at all, then they're going to love it. And then as soon as they say no, we're like, oh man. So
Yeah.
empathy, one of the best ways to build trust is to start every meeting with, look, I'd like to talk to you about this today. If I was in your shoes, I might worry about this, and I might have some questions on that. And I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this because, change is uncomfortable, whatever it is, but allow people to feel safe enough to tell you the truth. And you can't do that if you haven't empathized with them. And as soon as you are empathetic with people, it lowers their tension, which means it opens up their ears to listening. So you're not just making them feel better, you're helping them hear better. And then those questions that are being added in, which are fabulous, will actually be answered.
Really good point.
It's like
Really good point.
it's exactly that, opening up to listen, because I think we've all been in meetings where either if we're not doing it, we know someone who is, where the meeting starts and you've got someone sitting there, they've already got their shields up, right? And they've got that mental nope all over their face. And it could be that, hey, we're going to give everybody who's in this meeting, a pile of money. And it could be a happy thing, but you still got someone who's starting the meeting off saying,
No, thank you.
is got that like grumpy toddler look on their face because they just really would rather be anywhere else. And also a lot of times people feel that they're being dictated to with policy changes. And yes, there's definitely an aspect where, leaders have to lead. It can't always be, everybody can have equal weight on how they want to have, say, their company run. But they should still have the ability to communicate concerns and raise issues and feel heard and feel that they can raise those issues.
Absolutely.
But now, as far as what's this one that was
Yeah,
there?
just backing up what you're saying, really. Joanne says, in a formal board meeting, it's so difficult to draw in everyone to the conversation, especially when it is being recorded or formal minutes are being taken. So there might be a few things that you might want to say. Shall we turn off the recording for questions? But also, this reminds me about the need for diversity in that boardroom and making sure that everyone is heard. And you might want to be aware of people who aren't confident to speak up, to make sure that you're going around and you're actually asking people one by one to say, what do you think I might have missed, or what's your take on this? And actually make sure you get feedback from everyone so that everyone knows around the table they are expected to speak.
Especially the quiet ones.
And
especially the quiet ones.
You need to prepare them for that, and you need to be in a high trust environment already. But you can create it, and the more you do it, the less stressful that will feel, the less tension they'll feel. But I know so many people who come to me and they hate. You know what it's like? You're sitting in a room and it's going to be me next. It's going to be me next. And you can feel your heart rate going up, even though you've got something it's worthwhile saying. So if you haven't got a high trust environment and a culture of acceptance and openness, you're screwed. But you've got to make it right, isn't it? That's what we do.
There are also people who don't have the thoughts immediately, who are more, they're going to ruminate on the idea and think about it for a few hours and then come back once they've considered it themselves. We're all different, aren't we? We're all individuals.
Yeah.
And so I suppose you've got to make space for that as well.
Absolutely.
So diversity.
And publicize that too, and say,
Yes.
if you think of anything after this meeting, like the next steps are happening on this date, tomorrow, whatever, but let me know and we can have a side conversation if we need to.
If you think about the difference between you and I, Vanessa, very expressive, Melinda much more analytical in her thought process. And I know, I've talked to Melinda a lot, and Melinda will answer, I just need to think about that for a second. Whereas my issue, I'm not going to say it's yours, my issue is I don't think very much at all a lot of the time. And then I'll say exactly what I think, which might be refreshing for some, and then want time to backtrack. So we've got to allow for, there is no perfect. There is no right, there is no wrong. It's just what we are. And it's understanding the human behavioural preference you have in the room and allowing people to be able to time to come to their own conclusion, but also to be allowed to come back and say, can I reconfigure what I just said?
And
can I also say, just because whilst we're talking about who is in the room, if you find that you're in a room where there is no diversity, now, obviously, you might have a charter or a target for having more diversity on the board or in meetings and things like that. But you can't just flick that switch straight away. But what I would say is, even if there aren't people in that senior leadership team who, if there isn't diversity there, then for these important change meetings, make sure you've got diversity in the room. Invite others to join. You don't have to hire somebody in those positions, just like that, because it can't happen. But do get more people in the room so that you do hear all the different
balanced
voices.
input.
Yeah,
good, very good.
And then the other thing, because this is kind of it's a huge topic, and really half an hour is just nudging the surface of it. But Anna's
just saying it's crucial that you tell them at the beginning that you want their ideas and suggestions, and say it's all part of creating that safe space and that expectation and the invitation to get ideas. Thanks, Anne.
Yeah. And then I'm thinking, there's always part of an effective implementation plan. Even if it's, say, like a software implementation that you're rolling out, there still needs to be an element of marketing and communication in every successful project. So, Vanessa, what sort of things do you tend to, think about and include in that sort of initial planning stage for how are we going to communicate?
There is so much to consider, and the first question always that you need to answer is, what's in it for me? Because everybody who is listening to that change is not really going to be listening to what you're saying. They're going to be looking for, how does that affect me? Or why should I even care? And so you've got to approach it from that level. You've got to show people why you're doing it, how it affects them, and what it means for everybody. So that clarity, that transparency of the direction and what needs to be solved and how it affects people is really important. Then, it's impossible to have all the answers. But I know when we have communicated kind of large or big change, we've usually kind of got a backup of frequently asked questions to fall back on that we can share after, even though that those questions will come in the meeting as well. It's good to try and think of everything in advance.
And to kind of seed the conversation a bit too, isn't it? If the conversation lags and if people aren't asking the questions that you would think, you could say, "Oh yeah, before the meeting, we were talking about this. Does anybody have any input on that?" I think that's a good idea.
Sorry, go on. I was going to say, the other thing, of course, is
so much.
Different people like to be communicated with in different ways. Yes. Some people like to watch a video. Some people like to listen to audio. Someone just wants, the top 10 bullet points. Someone wants a, 5-page long newsletter. So it's important to create the communications that deliver, the key points. Try and get the top 10 points. What does it mean to them? And have more, where to go to get more information for those who want to read more deeply. But creating that safe space for communication is really important.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I was yes to what you just said, and just to take that the communication piece a little bit further is people do learn and hear it in different ways. And one of the things that I was always taught to do when I was creating proposals or presentations or anything is you give people the kind of the high level overview for those that just want a minute amount of detail, and then you expand and then you summarize again at the end. So we forget to do that. Just because I'm an expressive, I can go on for hours and create a document of 10 pages and then forget to put the executive summary in for the strong red drivers in the room, and they look at it and go bored. But whereas somebody with a strong analytical preference might go fabulous, bit waffly, but fabulous. So yeah, bear it all in
And the
mind.
other thing, of course, is to actually communicate from the beginning that you're looking at change. Because if people get the idea that something is happening that they're not involved with, then that vacuum of information, people will create their own stories.
Yes.
We'll try and bring people on the journey. Again,
Yeah.
don't just present it to them at the end.
Absolutely. And yeah, I always say that with every implementation project that I've ever worked on, that communication from the early days is important. It doesn't have to be the whole plan. It doesn't have to be anything confidential, or, you're not committing to anything, but to say, we're looking at implementing a new system to do X, and these are a couple of the benefits that we're looking at, and sort of slowly build up the what's in it for me, instead of just the common view is like, oh, well, we'll just tell people when it's done. They don't need to worry about it now. But actually, they will worry about it now. And it's much worse if you just wait till like the week before a launch and say, oh, hey, here's your mandatory training that you have to attend. Don't be late.
For example.
And it'll be, and we're changing everything.
Danny's made a good point, as always.
Yeah. Again, we still need to require an inclusive environment. So diversity or representation means nothing if it's not permitted to contribute without fear of ridicule or reprimand. Absolutely. And Anna says, "Hear, hear, Danny." She believes that. And Danny has continued by saying, tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them, and then tell them what you told them.
Yep.
Good points.
And tell them in a variety of different ways.
Yep.
And also bring the change.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's no wonder so many of us get this wrong so frequently, because there is a lot to think about, and I think we need to be careful. We're never going to be perfect. We get things wrong, whatever role we're in. It's about being the leader that says, "Hey, I got this wrong," and being honest about that.
Owning that, and saying, hey, if we don't try, we've got no chance to succeed. So.
But also, I think it was it? Oh no, it was. Odessa, when she was here, made a really good point about not waiting for perfect, because perfect doesn't happen. And if you wait until you've got all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, you're too far. You're too far gone, and you can't involve people in the communication.
Yeah.
So
you
actually,
can't be agile either if something does need to change.
Absolutely. So bring people on early on. Don't wait for perfect. Allow people to be involved, and then they feel ownership and engagement in it as well. So we've got a few more.
Good comments.
Yeah. So Dawn's here. Hello. Include what is not changing. That's really key, isn't it? I mean, Sarah, you can tell us all about how we need safety and security.
Yeah.
And tell them what you don't know yet. Nice point. But what the timeline is for getting that information. I think, you might not have all the answers, but if people can see that there is a timeline and different stages, so that they realize that you've got everything covered, or you will have, there is a plan for that, then that gives people a lot of security, doesn't it?
It leads into the whole certainty piece in the SCARF model about psychological safety.
Yeah. Beautifully complex and so worth it.
Is that just us? I think she's just describing us. Beautifully complex, it's so worthy. Thank you, Anna Maria. We love you.
And amazingly enough,
oh my God, look at the time. But we've not done any of the kind of the diversity kind of.
We'll come back to that in 2 weeks' time.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, so
I'll do it again.
Be sure to join us next week, though, where we are going to have the very special guest. Danny is going to be like bringing. You see all the pearls of wisdom in the chat. Just imagine him live.
I know, you'd be amazing. I can't wait. Can't wait.
So, And on that note, I think we are going to wrap it up. And sorry for Alfie being so present today,
It's
but
fine.
Fabulous.
Thank you everybody for all your comments. Sue, we can just see one of yours has come in. We'll come back to that in the post. And thank you. Yes, we are enthusiastic, aren't we? Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you all next
yes,
week.
thank you, everyone. We hope to see you next week. Thanks all. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.